a supposed hitman who was really an undercover detective.
And he might be able to make it worth your while to, maybe make something for him, to make a bomb, something like that.
On the other hand, they also heard Jimmy Seville crowing about his bomb-making skills.
I'm a real pyro, but I do like blowing things up. It's about time I get paid for it.
Seville's defense got some unexpected help from informant Thomas Morgan, who had made a surprising statement to prison officials shortly after Seville's arrest. Quote, Morgan started talking about how Seville was entrapped, states Seville was set up by the sheriff's department. In his sworn deposition, Thomas Morgan performed another wild about-face, claiming that he was just playing yet another angle for better treatment behind bars.
My statement was to this effect: if you don't get somebody down here to do something with me, that I'm going to turn this whole thing around and make it seem like an entrapment case.
Who do you trust? Morgan, the convicted con man and veteran informant who claimed he was just doing his civic duty? Or Seville, the convicted would-be arsonist, accused would-be assassin who claimed he was coerced into building a bomb? Or maybe Wayne Scoville, the sheriff's sergeant who had called Seville's lawyer with his doubts about the investigation.
It's the worst case I've ever seen. It's a complete entrapment. The informant really ran the show.
The case went to the jury on June 12, 2003. Seville's lawyer, Ulises Ferragut, was nervous.
I had a very good sense that we presented the case well, but you never know what a jury's going to do.
Working very hard.
Jury foreperson Fausta Woody and juror Darla Wright said Thomas Morgan's testimony actually hurt the prosecution. Thomas Morgan sort of cast himself as a good citizen.
He did.
You think Thomas Morgan was a good citizen?
No.
They were surprised to find James Seville credible.
He was very open and honest about the entire thing. They could not catch him in one single lie.
And Detective Scoville was the icing on the cake.
When he said this kid was entrapped from the beginning, that was the end of the case.
Jimmy Seville had been in jail for 4 years. Friday the 13th turned out to be his lucky day.
We, the jury, do find the defendant not guilty of count 1.
And they read the verdict and they say not guilty. And do you realize that's it? You get out of jail, it's the end?
I was too happy to realize anything.
His mom, Rebecca, who believed in him all those years.
It was the best thing I'd heard in the longest time. Not guilty, that means he's coming home.
And it means he's not a murderer.
That's right.
Most emotional of all, believe it or not, his attorney. You didn't think you were going to win?
Didn't know.
You've been in how many criminal trials?
A lot.
And yet you're getting emotional over this one.
Yeah.
How come?
Because I knew in my heart he was innocent. I knew it. The question was, could I prove it?
But prove it he did. The jury found that James Seville had been entrapped. Under Arizona law, that meant the jury believed that Seville never would have committed the crime unless the sheriff's office or their informant, Thomas Morgan, gave Seville the idea and convinced him to carry it out. It was a decisive verdict, and one that did not sit well with Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Sheriff Arpaio spoke to the local media immediately after the verdict. He adamantly denied that his department entrapped James Seville and said as far as he was concerned, Seville was guilty. But even though Sheriff Arpaio is usually one of the most accessible public figures you'll find, he declined our request for an interview about this case, in which a jury came to believe his department framed a young man in order to produce a high-profile arrest. Should this case have ever reached a courtroom?
It should have never occurred, period.
There may yet be another trial in this case. James Seville is suing the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Joe Arpaio himself for gross negligence and malicious prosecution, allegations the sheriff and his office deny. Seville, once considered the perp, now says he was the victim of a cagey informant and the sheriff's office itself.
Morgan, he's a criminal, He's expected to do it. But for the people who covered it up, and sheltered him. And I think, you know, maybe they're to blame. You know, the ones that, you know, made his plot work, who knew what he was doing, and just covered it up and called me a liar for all those years.
As we mentioned, we did ask for an interview with Sheriff Arpaio. He declined, citing James Seville's pending lawsuit. The sheriff was re-elected to his 4th term last November. That's all for this edition of Dateline Friday. We'll see you again for Dateline Sunday at 7, 6 Central. I'm Stone Phillips, and for all of us at NBC News, good night.